The Attorney General giving some details on former Cabinet Minister's court case, a number of proposed bills in the work, and the Minister of Health defending the relaxation of COVID-19 protocols. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Tuesday, March 15th. Star witness in the now dropped corruption case against former Cabinet Minister Kenred Dorset, Jonathan Ash wanted to be paid for his witness testimony. Attorney General Ryan Pinder reveals this much to reporters before Cabinet at the office of the Prime Minister this morning.
The trial date was set for last week, and in preparation for the trial date, the prosecutor in charge of the matter was calling in and interviewing and getting the evidence in line for the trial. At the time he called in the chief witness, Mr. Ash, Mr. Ash had approached him and was seeking remuneration for his testimony. That is not how the DPP functions. That request was immediately denied. Mr. Ash then said he would not give testimony, and therefore without the witness there was no case to proceed with.
This information comes off the heels of a statement released this past Friday by the Department of Public Prosecutions, which indicates that the prosecution has insufficient evidence to proceed after Mr. Ash refused to testify. Asks how much money Jonathan Ash requested, the AG says this.
I was not in the conversations. As you know, constitutionally, the DPP is an independent institution from the Office of the Attorney General. Therefore, I was not in those negotiations. I was not in those discussions. We were not involved in the preparation for trial. And in fact, if Mr. Ash walked right in front of me, I couldn't even tell you what he looked like.
Mr. Kenred Dorset held the portfolio for environment and housing under the Christie administration and represented Southern Shores from 2012 to 2017. Following the Free National Movement's victory in May of the same year, the former minister was the first of 3 former Progressive Liberal Party parliamentarians to be accused of and charged with abusing their office for financial gain. At the time, Mr. Dorset was charged with 4 counts of extortion and 4 of bribery, totaling $120,000, and a single count of misconduct in public office. It was alleged that there was an exchange of funds in connection with work done by a heavy equipment operator to move debris from New Providence landfill following a blaze there in March 2017. In April of 2018, the prosecution dropped the 4 counts of extortion and the misconduct in public office charge and decided to only proceed with the bribery charges. Last week, he appeared before Senior Justice Bernard Turner for a case management hearing where it was revealed that Jonathan Ash indicated his intention to not testify. A number of proposed bills are set to be presented to Cabinet surrounding the Bahamas' human rights obligations. Here's Leah Cooper with more.
A suite of proposed legislation designed to meet the country's international human rights obligations has been compiled, according to Attorney General Senator Ryan Pinder. He tells reporters on Monday that these address issues and commitments the government has made as far back as 2018 to the United Nations and other multilateral institutions in preparation to go before the Human Rights Council, which is scheduled for February of next year.
Involved in that suite of legislation are a number of things. Some of it has to do, for instance, immigration matters to create equality of men and women pursuant to the constitutional reforms that failed. And so some of the recommendations to do that by legislation, for example. Others have to do with matters of good governance, Ombudsman, Freedom of Information Act, and then others have to do with gender-based violence matters. And within that suite of recommended legislation are matters related to gender-based violence, matters related to marital rape, matters related to juvenile offenses, for example. So it's involved in a all-encompassing suite of legislation, which is a human rights legislative agenda that has been formulated. So this is now ready to go and to inform Cabinet.
Now, with regard to the immigration bill that he spoke of, the AG says it deals with matters relating to citizenship and individuals seeking asylum. In June of last year, the former Immigration Minister Ellsworth Johnson told reporters that the Bahamas Law Reform Commission was still in the process of making final revisions to the third third draft of the Nationality, Immigration, and Asylum Bill. While he did not indicate when the latest version of the draft will be expected to be completed, he said he hopes the bill will be laid in Parliament during the Minnis administration's term in office. That, however, did not happen. Additionally, the Ombudsman bill was tabled in Parliament in 2017 and has never been advanced to debate. This legislation would give the citizenry an independent resource to receive and address government maladministration.
And so it's an all-encompassing new piece of legislation that the former administration had worked on. We've taken a look at it, we've refined it, and we provide some different options on how we might want to implement it to go to Cabinet.
And the marital rape, that would be proposing the criminalization of it?
Yes.
The AG adds that this suite contains some 20 to 25 different amendments and new pieces of legislation. He says his office hopes to bring this to Cabinet within the next week or two to get guidance on what to go forward with. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Leah Cooper.
Thanks, Leah. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Michael Darville defending the government's decision to relax a number of COVID-19 restrictions in the wake of criticisms. Former Minister of Health and Free National Movement Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands has called on the government numerous times to release the data that Ministry of Health is making their decisions based on. Here's Dr. Darville's response to the former health minister's criticisms.
Watching the cases of COVID-19 fall throughout the country for the last month, we're satisfied, based on the epidemiological evidence that's pointing in our direction, that the country now needs to think about opening up other sectors of the economy. Our cabinet is very progressive with business. We understand where we are financially. And yes, we have to make some decisions that may be questionable, but we believe that they're in the best interest of the Bahamian people. Safety is paramount for our EOC and us at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And we're not going to be here shaking in our boots while other Caribbean countries are moving progressively to open up their economies and get other sectors of the economy flowing.
Now, Dr. Sands was also critical of the new protocols for masks, which include the removal of a requirement to wear face mask in a lobby, corridor, or casino of a hotel or an outdoor setting where there is at least 3 feet of space between people. When asked if this protocol can be discriminatory to average Bahamian businesses, Dr. Darville says this.
Well, we don't think it's discriminatory. Our EOC made a decision based on the vaccination rate of visitors in our hotels and the testing requirements to enter the country. One of the things that is so difficult to do what I do is to juggle and balance commerce versus safety. And we believe that even though we said that the mask can be removed, there's no mandatory rule in place that individuals who want to wear masks should not wear masks. And as you go to place, particularly at our tourism centers and hotels, you will see people wearing masks and some not. And so when we look at what's going on in the region, and in order for us not to lose excessive amount of businesses to our competitors, we have to be on the cutting edge, and we have to make decisions that we believe is a combination of safety as well as the promotion of business, particularly our tourism sector.
Dr. Darville notes that the change to mask mandates is directly tied in with the percentage of vaccinated individuals at our resorts. Good news for those in the healthcare sector. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is in the process of hiring up to 500 additional nurses. The health sector has been experiencing a lack of manpower since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister responsible Dr. Michael Darville spoke to this just before the weekly cabinet meeting.
Well, I'm so pleased that my cabinet colleagues saw the need and the challenges we face at our tertiary as well as our primary healthcare facilities. I'm very fortunate that I visit just about every clinic in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, with the exception of a few, and I visit all the hospitals. We realize that there's a manpower shortage. There was a shortage of nurses, and Cabinet approved the hiring of 100 specialty nurses, 50 this year and 50 in the next budget year. We know that 50 Cuban nurses are already in the country. They came in the heat of the fourth wave and made a contribution to put us to where we are today. We've also gotten approval to hire 100 nurse assistants. We looked at various models throughout the Caribbean, and we realized that nurse assistants can play a very intricate role to compensate for the manpower shortages, particularly with nurses.
Dr. Darwell also noted that the ministry has hired a number of clerks, ambulance drivers, caretakers, janitors, and other support staff throughout the Family Islands.
My visit to the Family Islands made it very clear that these facilities were deficient in manpower resources. And as we speak about improving the physical infrastructure, the first thing we need to do is address the manpower shortages and start the necessary training protocol. So yes, in all, the Ministry of Health has now gotten approval for about 500 workers that will be dispersed throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And I'm pleased to report that hopefully by the end of this month, some of the training programs will start. And I am of the view that we should start with the National Training Agency so that we can put these potential workers through a rapid training program for soft skills.
The minister expressed how delighted he was that despite the pandemic and these tough economic times, the Davis-led administration saw fit for the Ministry of Health to hire some 500 nurses in the next few months. Minister of National Security Wayne Munro renewing his appeal to the public to turn in or report illegal firearms. This off the heels of a string of alleged gang-related killings over the weekend. Laurencia Smith has more.
The heels of the first homicide in Thompson Lane over the weekend, police confirming that the victim was the wrong target. Minister of National Security Wayne Munro tells reporters this morning that the public ought to continue to turn in illegal firearms and report their owners.
What that should say to everyone in every community in the Bahamas, it is not safe to have these persons among you, and so it is in your interest to turn them in to the police. I mean, it can't be clearer than that from what Commissioner Fernanda has said, that here it is, if they are correct. Gunman came to kill someone in Thompson Lane, happened to kill the wrong person, and then came back for the correct person. So if you are in Pinewood, if you are in Camp Road, if you're in Nassau Village, if you're in Garden Hills, and you know you have people around you who are involved in that activity, you need to give them up to the police.
At the press conference yesterday, Acting Police Commissioner Clayton Fernanda also mentioned that the guns were brought into the country, sometimes stuffed in food parcels and hardware boxes. The National Security Minister was asked what the government can do to slow down or eradicate the importation of illegal firearms. Here's his response.
Based on what the police tells me and based on my 30 years seeing firearms matters before the court, they either come to us from the U.S. or, curiously, some come to us from Haiti and Jamaica. We are an archipelagic nation. Everything is shipped and everything is flown in. The police will do their best together with the ATF, the Jamaican Constabulary, and our friends in Haiti in getting intelligence to intercept guns coming in. Clearly, a lot of guns make it to the street. And again, this is where the public can be proactive. If you know of anyone who has a gun, turn it in.
He adds that he's encouraged that the Minister of Social Services, Obi Wilshcombe, is about to embark on an exercise to remove derelict cars. He's encouraged because he says police discover guns in those cars. He also mentioned that he intends to clear down bushes in certain areas, sometimes popular spot for concealing an illegal firearm. Minister Munro says where the government can act in removing the places where these items are often hidden, it will do so. I'm Laurencia Smith for JCN News.
Thanks, Laurencia. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.